On September 25, 2025, anticipation filled the United Nations General Assembly Hall. Diplomats, world leaders, and journalists from every corner of the globe gathered in New York, their eyes fixed on the stage. The air was thick with expectation, as rumors swirled about what would unfold. The world's attention was focused on a single man, Donald Trump, whose return to the international spotlight promised drama, controversy, and perhaps a new direction for global diplomacy. As Donald Trump strode confidently onto the stage, the room seemed to hold its breath. Cameras flashed, and a hush fell over the assembly. For many, this was more than just another speech. It was a moment that could reshape the tone of international relations. He arrived with characteristic unpredictability, opening with a reference to a malfunctioning escalator, a callback to his own campaign launch, but now used as a metaphor for the UN's dysfunction. The analogy was both pointed and theatrical, setting the stage for what was to come. Trump's speech, far longer than the usual 15 minutes, quickly became a spectacle. It was part campaign rally, part scathing rebuke of the institution itself. He spoke with the energy of a showman, mixing bravado with sharp criticism, and rarely pulling his punches. He opened with a bold claim. His administration, he said, had ended 7 of the world's toughest conflicts, succeeding where the UN had failed. He painted himself as a peacemaker, a leader who could achieve what others only talked about, and he didn't hesitate to highlight the shortcomings of the international body. Trump positioned himself as the ultimate dealmaker, challenging the very foundation of multilateralism. He urged world leaders to embrace unapologetic nationalism, arguing that strong nations make for a stronger world. His words were a direct challenge to the spirit of cooperation that the UN was built upon. "Take care of your own people first," he declared, drawing a sharp line between decisive action and what he called bureaucratic inertia. The statement resonated with some, but unsettled many others in the room. The address stunned the audience, setting a confrontational tone and framing Trump as a disruptor, not a partner. Delegates exchanged uneasy glances, unsure of how to respond to such a direct challenge to the institution's core values. As the speech ended, the world's media rushed to capture every reaction. Trump's performance ensured the world would be talking about the UN and his vision for it for days to come, leaving a mark that would not soon be forgotten. The centerpiece of Trump's address was his claim to have personally ended 7 major conflicts. He listed Armenia, Azerbaijan, Cambodia, Thailand, Israel, Iran, India, Pakistan, Rwanda, DRC, Egypt, Ethiopia, and Serbia, Kosovo, as resolved through his direct intervention. Trump framed these as permanent solutions, not fragile ceasefires, and repeated his desire for a Nobel Peace Prize. Yet experts quickly pointed out the reality. Most of these conflicts remain unresolved or in fragile truces. For example, Armenia and Azerbaijan's disputes persist, and Israel-Iran proxy wars continue across the Middle East. India and Pakistan remain tense, and the Ethiopia-Egypt dam dispute is far from settled. Trump's narrative of definitive peace was more political theater than diplomatic fact. The world saw his claims as bold but deeply contested. Trump then launched a scathing attack on the United Nations, calling it a bloated, ineffective bureaucracy. He accused the UN of endless talk and little action, blaming it for ongoing wars, famine, and unchecked migration. Trump mocked the organization's failures with anecdotes like the broken escalator and teleprompter, using them as symbols of broader dysfunction. He argued that UN policies on migration threatened national sovereignty and security. Trump highlighted his administration's billion-dollar funding cuts as a push for accountability. "We won't write blank checks for failure," he declared, reinforcing his America First stance. His critique aimed to undermine the UN's legitimacy and promote a world of strong, independent nations. The message was clear: the era of globalist consensus was over. In a stunning reversal, Trump announced full support for Ukraine to reclaim all its territory, abandoning his previous skepticism. He dismissed Russia as a paper tiger, and pledged to arm Europe with American weapons, positioning the US as the arsenal for Ukraine's defense. Trump urged NATO to respond forcefully to Russian aggression, escalating his rhetoric. Kyiv welcomed the shift, seeing new hope for Western support, while European leaders saw renewed US commitment. However, Secretary of State Marco Rubio quickly tempered Trump's words, emphasizing the need for a negotiated settlement. The contradiction exposed ongoing tensions within US foreign policy. allies and adversaries alike were left questioning which voice truly represented America. At the United Nations, Trump turned to climate change, calling it the greatest con job ever. He didn't just question the science, he launched a full-scale attack on the very idea that climate change was real or urgent. He dismissed the overwhelming scientific consensus as nothing more than fiction, undermining decades of research and the warnings of experts from around the world. Trump ridiculed renewable energy, labeling wind and solar as scams that, in his view, would only lead to higher costs and unreliable power. He argued that these technologies threatened both American prosperity and national security, painting a dire picture of a future without fossil fuels. Trump presented a stark choice to the world: embrace fossil fuels for economic strength and job creation, or as he warned, watch your economies wither under what he called burdensome and misguided climate policies. He touted a massive US-EU energy deal, claiming it would secure affordable energy for allies and cement America's leadership in global markets. For Trump, this was proof of his America First energy doctrine, prioritizing domestic industry and fossil fuel exports above all else. His speech became a sales pitch for oil, gas, and coal, promoting them as the backbone of American greatness and dismissing alternatives as impractical. He ignored the rapid growth of renewables worldwide, overlooking the fact that countries across Europe and Asia were leading the way in clean energy innovation. Trump even falsely claimed that China doesn't use wind power, attempting to paint America's rivals as hypocrites. But the evidence was clear. China had invested heavily in wind and solar, becoming a global leader in renewables. For Trump, the climate debate was never just about science. It was a front in his broader war against globalism, international cooperation, and what he called the scientific elite. His rhetoric further isolated the US from its allies on climate action, leaving America increasingly alone on the world stage as the rest of the globe moved forward. Trump addressed the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, condemning Western allies for recognizing Palestinian statehood after recent violence. He reaffirmed unwavering US support for Israel, vowing to block any international pressure for a ceasefire in Gaza. Despite a worsening humanitarian crisis, Trump's administration continued to veto UN resolutions calling for peace. Behind the scenes, regional leaders met with Trump to discuss ending the war, hinting at possible negotiations. Meanwhile, Germany suspended arms exports to Israel, signaling growing international concern and US isolation. Trump's public stance was uncompromising, but diplomatic channels remained open. His approach deepened divisions among Western allies and heightened global tensions. The speech underscored the complexity and volatility of the diplomatic landscape. The reaction to Trump's speech was immediate and polarized. UN Secretary-General Guterres defended multilateralism, warning against the chaos of undermined institutions. French President Macron called for an end to Israel's permanent war, while maintaining personal rapport with Trump. Colombia's president condemned US policy on Gaza, urging international intervention. Poland's new leader echoed Trump's hawkish stance on Russia, highlighting shifting alliances. Human rights groups blasted Trump's proposals as dangerous and unlawful. Ukrainian President Zelensky expressed cautious optimism, while Palestinian representatives voiced deep dismay. Trump's address deepened global divides, celebrated by nationalists and condemned by internationalists. Trump's 2025 UN address was marked by audacious claims and a loose relationship with the truth. From the moment he took the podium, it was clear this would not be a conventional speech. Trump's rhetoric was bold, unapologetic, and designed to capture global attention, leaving many in the audience both captivated and unsettled. Fact-checkers quickly debunked his boasts of ending wars and his falsehoods about climate and migration. Newsrooms buzzed with activity as experts dissected each claim, highlighting the gap between Trump's narrative and the realities on the ground. The speed and scale of the fact-checking effort underscored just how polarizing his words had become. His speech blended fact with hyperbole, creating a compelling narrative for supporters and frustration for critics. For his base, Trump's bravado reaffirmed their faith in his leadership, while opponents saw it as a dangerous distortion of truth. The divide was palpable, both inside the UN and across the world. Trump's America First doctrine was on full display. Skepticism of international institutions, preference for bilateral deals, and willingness to upend diplomatic norms. He challenged the very foundations of multilateralism, signaling a shift toward a more transactional approach to foreign policy that left many allies uneasy. The Ukraine pivot may reshape Eastern Europe, but contradictions sow confusion about U.S. reliability. While Trump promised support, his mixed signals and shifting priorities left diplomats questioning America's long-term commitments and the stability of the region. His climate stance further isolates America, while his Middle East policy deepens conflict. By dismissing global climate efforts and doubling down on controversial military actions, Trump positioned the U.S. as both a disruptor and an outlier on the world stage. For allies and adversaries, the speech was a reminder of Trump's unpredictability. Some leaders watched with concern, others with cautious optimism, but all recognized the uncertainty that now defined America's role in global affairs. The future of the international order now seems more transactional and volatile than ever. As the world digests the implications of Trump's doctrine, questions linger about whether global cooperation can survive in an era defined by shifting alliances and unpredictable leadership.